Okay, perfect. All right. So, hey, good morning. And as you can see on the screen, we've got a few things to do. And so we're going to just finish up a couple things on our lesson planning notes. Then we are going to do a little Bloom's not slash, Bloom's and lesson plan review Kahoots. Then we're going to put a brain lesson plan together, like put a lesson plan together so that you can see how I put it together, and then you'll be able to kind of work on your own a little bit. And then while we're doing that, or maybe even before we do that, we're going to talk about outcomes and what specific learning expectations are, this SLE part here on the screen versus what's the difference between those and general learning expectations or outcomes. Okay. And also looking at the old curriculum versus the new curriculum. And then we'll talk about AI and using AI to help us develop lesson plans. Okay. So we've got lots to do as usual in a 3-hour class. But one of the things that I want to do first is there's one little short, what is it? Two sentences about Bloom's taxonomy from last day that I just want to make sure that we've got them written down, because I think it's really important for us, you as an educator, to keep in mind when we're using and implementing Bloom's taxonomy. But before we do that, does anybody have any thoughts, questions, anything on their mind? No? Everybody's good? Okay. So then what we will do here is we'll just write these notes really, really quick. All right. I don't know, my iPad is so slow today for some reason. All right. So wherever you've got your Bloom's notes written, and if you're handwriting your notes, so this is more of a kind of a little bit of an inconvenience, but if you're typing them, you can just insert these next couple of sentences there. So as far as Bloom's goes, then we'll go like this. Here, let's go with my iPad. Just hold on here. There we go. Your job as the teacher is to design, a learning path that ends with a creative or evaluative task that ensures that students are scaffolded. Okay, and I want you to underline or bold or do something with that word scaffolded, because I want to come back and just talk about that. It's a really important word for us to know and understand as teachers. Okay, to ensures that students are scaffolded to the top of Bloom's. I'm going to try to squeeze Bloom's in here. There we go, period. Okay, one other little sentence here. So continuing on here, when students are required, to physically create something, create something comma, they. Okay, I'll leave that on there for a second. I have to go to a new page. I don't want to squeeze it in on the bottom there. Okay, so again, when students are required to physically create something, comma, they. Does anybody need it on there for a little bit longer? Everybody's good? Okay, let me just make a new page here. There we go. So, hold on for a second here. They, right, okay. They will naturally, okay, begin to apply the learning they have gained along the way comma through hold on for a sec here. There we go. Through previous levels of blooms, in the creation task. That's it, creation task. Okay, it's only 2 sentences, but it feels a lot longer, doesn't it? Okay, I'll leave that up there for a second too. All right, I'm going to go back, but I'll come to this page again. All right, so if we look at that again, it says your job is to design a learning path. So when we start lesson planning and you start thinking about lesson planning, you'll see that you're given the outcome, right, by the government in the form of the programs of study or whatever curriculum you're involved with. But your job then is to take this outcome and design a path that takes students from the bare bottom, remembering the provinces and capitals of Canada, all the way up to creating something about nationalism or the country of Canada or something like that. Okay, so it ends in a creative or evaluative task, and usually it's both, right? Usually there's a project, and often and usually as well, there's some kind of final exam or unit quiz or unit test or something like that. So we're doing kind of both things. We have this sort of hands-on creative thing that they have to submit to us at the end, plus we're going to test for knowledge. So if you think about this class, right at the end of this term, there's a final exam, and it has 2 parts. One is the multiple choice part, which is the evaluative part, right, the knowledge part. And then we have that part 2 of that final exam, which is the hands-on, where you're going to create some stuff for me using the Google Apps. So this class is built like that there's a creative, the hands-on part, and there's an evaluative part, which is the multiple choice exam. So that's kind of what we sort of aim for when we teach. And that's how society, the school district, the government expects you to decide whether students pass to the next grade and stuff like that, because you are using those 2 pieces to decide whether a student has learned those outcomes from whatever it is that you're doing. Okay. And then the other part, after it says a creative or evaluative task, that ensures that students are scaffolded. Now I'm just going to, if you don't know what scaffolding is, right, you see it all the time in construction, right? You've got some worker people working on a house, and they're putting up siding or something like that, right? Well, then what they do, right, is they build these metal sort of structures that have like a platform that they stand on, right? And then they're working, putting up the siding, and then as they need, they add more scaffolding to the bottom piece, and then move themselves up, and then they continue working. Okay, so when we are doing when we are teaching and kids are learning, that's what we try to do, right? If we were to take that same example And down here, let's say this is grade 1, right? Or kindergarten, grade 1. And they learn a whole bunch of things like ABCs and the numbers and how to count and how to write and all that jazz. Then they take all of those skills and they build on those, and then they end up in, grade 2. And what they learned in grade 1 then is applied to what they need to learn to be successful in grade 2. Then they take grade 2 stuff, and then they end up in grade 3 all the way to graduation, right? So the curriculum is designed to be scaffolded like that, is that then the next year builds on the previous year. So that's why when we teach, it's really important that we cover the outcomes to the best of our ability and to the best of the kids' ability, so that they can be scaffolded and have those skills that they need for the next grade. And you will invariably hear teachers, when you get a group of kids and they don't know a skill they're supposed to know for whatever reason, teachers will say, either to themselves or amongst each other, what the heck did McDermott do last year? These kids don't even know how to do whatever, right? So it's really important that we try to achieve those outcomes so that the next grade, they're equipped and ready to go for that part. Okay, so that's what scaffolding means, and you'll hear that term lots about scaffolding learning and things like that. So it's important for us to have a general idea of how that works. And as you progress through your program, you'll learn more about that. Okay, scaffolded to the top of Bloom's, right? Which is our create. And of course, we've added that extra level of sharing. So that's kind of where we want to get kids to when we're working at whatever outcomes we're working at, right? And sometimes you're working at the bottom, and sometimes you're working in the middle, and sometimes you're working at the top, or there could be a combination of those types of things, okay? And then the next part, it says when students are required to physically create something, right? Basically, then that forces them to use the skills that they've learned in all the other levels of Bloom's taxonomy, right? So, and again, right here, is our ultimate top of Bloom's, is that we want them generally for almost everything that I can think of that we do with kids, we want them to sort of create something, right? I can't even think of a time where there isn't something that they're making for us to prove that they've learned whatever concept it is. Okay, so that's really important for us to remember, right? So again, and then they'll naturally apply what they've learned or what they've gained along the way, as it says there, in that creation task. So at the end, that then, if whatever they create in the end is what you're like, oh, that's awesome, that's really what I wanted, then that you've moved them through those different levels of Bloom's, and also that they've achieved or understand the outcomes that they're supposed to understand for whatever thing that is that you're teaching at that time. Okay, thoughts or questions? Okay, so again, the other really important part here too is it's your job, right? That is your number one thing, is that you need to make sure that these kids get the outcomes. And of course, with that comes, a million other things that we're responsible for. But at the end of the day, no one cares that you built, like when I say no one, I mean, I'm talking about the government or people that record marks on provincial exams or diploma exams. Nobody cares that you built a great relationship with a student and you've helped them through the year in a tough time in their life or whatever. Nobody cares about that, right? All they care about is they look at a piece of paper and go, there's all the grades for that student. They all passed whatever grade. It looks like they know the outcomes. Excellent job, McDermott. Excellent job, students, right? But they don't care about any of the other stuff. And so then when you hear teachers kind of poo-pooing provincial exams or diploma exams, that's part of the reason, is that nothing else really gets taken into account other than that one quick little snapshot of 2 hours or 3 hours or however long they have to write that test and how well they did on that test, regardless of anything else that's happening in that student's day or happening in that student's life or anything like that. Okay, and again, that's kind of an unfair part of our job, but it is what you're signing up for. Okay, all right. Again, last chance for thoughts or whatever. Not last chance, but I'm going to move on if anybody has questions. No, everybody's good. Okay. So now we are going to officially carry on. Let me just find my mouse arrow. There we go. On with our lesson planning notes. And if I am correct or remember, the last thing we talked about was content chunking. Did I give you the 10 brain facts thing? Up to 6. Yeah, okay, 6 is, yeah, I did include them all. So, okay, perfect. Thanks, Gracie. And then the next thing that I want to talk about, and it is in Google Classroom as well. So I'm just going to bring that up so that you can see it. Where are we here? Week 5. There we go. So all of you should have your brain lesson templates handed in. Okay. And you're gonna need them today. So in your Google Drive, you're gonna end up having to make a copy of your template, but we'll get to that point in 1 second. And that's not what I'm looking for, because the next part is we're talking about a completed brain lesson plan. And what I'm looking for here is this baby right here. Okay, so when we think, and I'll make this bigger too so you can see it on your screen. There we go. When we're working on our blank lesson plans, okay, let me just grab ours right here. We know that we've got these chunks, these segments that involve a chunk, right, which is the content that we're teaching or things that students need to know or be able to do, kind of idea. And then we have a chew, okay? And we know that depending on the grade, here we have up to 20 minutes to teach the chunk or 7 new pieces of information. Then we should really try to give them some type of activity to do, okay? Well, one of the parts is, again, is I know what my content is going to be. They've got to learn how to do long division. I know that. That's today's lesson. We're starting long division, right? So that's great. But now what is going to be the activity? And what Marcia Tate suggests are these 20 things or possibilities to implement under your choose. So you could have them do some type of writing, okay? And we have kids do loads and loads of that. There's storytelling. We talked about storytelling and the power of storytelling, right? Mnemonic devices. What is a mnemonic device? That's a great spelling test word too, by the way. What is a mnemonic device? You all know. Can anybody think of a mnemonic device? Nobody can? Okay, hold on for a sec here. Let me just bring this back up, right? What about if I wrote this down? Does that ring a bell or remind you of anything? Well, how about this? Remember we talked that long-term memory is infinite, and given the appropriate cue, you can retrieve stuff that you've previously learned, even if you stored it way back on, on the back shelf somewhere in your brain. You can recall it if given the appropriate cue. Well, here's the appropriate cue. I'll give you one word. Neuron. Does that help anybody? How about this? Does that help anybody? Oh my goodness, do we have to go back to, I don't know, like grade whatever, social studies? The Great Lakes, Huron, Ontario, Michigan, Erie, Superior. Tell me you learned that somewhere along the way. No? How about this one? That one's got to ring some bells, right? Okay, there we go. That one. How about this one? Does anybody know what that one means? No? Well, do any of you know the planets of the solar system and in the order they go from the sun? How about Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, everybody's favorite, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto? And to remember that, some of you maybe remember this. My very earthly mother just stole us 9 pizzas. And that's how you teach kids to remember the order of the planets. Anyways, long story short, that is a mnemonic device, and we use them all the time, right? On any exam, I'm sure that you do the same strategy I do. If you have to remember a list of things, you try to make a word out of that list to help you remember them for an exam or a quiz or something like that. So that's mnemonic devices. So if you can get kids working on those, right, any kind of visual or graphic or anything like that is a thing that you could do in a chew. Marsha Tate's favorite is some type of movement, right? And again, you think teaching young kids the parts of the body, right? And there's that little song, and you do the little movements, head, shoulders, knees, and toes, and you teach kids just some, basic parts of the body, right? Role playing, everybody hates role playing. And I'll tell you right now, if you whatever class you're teaching and you're thinking, I want kids to role play this, don't make them come up to the front of the room unless it's a drama class, right? Because they are going to hate themselves and probably hate you as well, because nobody likes getting put on the spot. So what I suggest, and what I've done many, many years now, is if I want something role played, is I will either tell them with, by themselves or with a partner, tonight for homework, what your job is to make a little video of you and your partner or whoever role playing something, and then they would hand that in, right? So then there takes that sort of, I don't know, embarrassment factor out of it, because potentially I'm the only other person seeing that video then, right? So I get the same effect. I get that role play of them demonstrating something or whatever the case might be, but we take away that terror of being asked to come to the front of the room and do something, right? Visualization, right? All athletes, certainly professional or Olympic athletes, do this, right? Is that in their mind's eye, they visualize themselves pole vaulting in the steps or whatever it is, and the whole process of whatever skill that is, they visualize that over and over and over in their head. To help them when it comes to that, competition or game time, that it's sort of locked in there a little bit. Okay. Using metaphors, analogies, similes, right. And those of you that are either in Ed 1500 or Ed 1500 grads have done a metaphor, right? What's your teaching metaphor, right? And in my 1302 class, talking about a technology metaphor, technology is whatever it is. Okay. Reciprocal teaching, right? This one goes with our number 9 on our lesson plan methodology from Hunter, right? Reciprocal teaching means peer teaching, right? And we know that the best way to know that if somebody understands a concept is if they can teach it, right? Okay. Music, we talked about music, and we talked about thinking in threes, right? 3 choruses in songs, 3 act plays, things like that. And so we know that when we can incorporate music into the learning process, that really helps it students retain it from short-term memory to long-term memory. Okay. And again, grade 1, kindergarten, pre-K, grade 2, teachers are awesome at this, right? They incorporate music or singing and song, things like that into a lot of the learning that they do. And it helps solidify that concept, right? And again, there's a whole program out there called Math Rap, where kids are rapping math facts to remember things that they're supposed to remember in and around math. Okay. Graphic organizers, you will have an assignment to create a graphic organizer in this class, but graphic organizers are really helpful for all students, but especially for students that might struggle with, let's say, note taking. You could create a graphic organizer, or let's say it is I'll show you a graphic organizer right now. You've all done this one, right? Okay. We've all done this graphic organizer, the map of Canada, right? And then you've all done either, label the provinces and capitals, color the rivers and lakes blue, something like that. You've labeled a map, right? You've all labeled the parts of a cell. You've all labeled, a blank picture of a human being, and, labeling parts of the body. Those are all graphic organizers that help you and help students not have to, like, you're not going to tell your students, okay, boys and girls, folks, people, I would like everybody to draw this map of Canada and then we'll get started, right? No one's going to do that. You're going to give them this and then you're going to get them to do whatever task it is that you want. So we use graphic organizers all the time in teaching. And like I said, you're going to create one later in the term for a grade topic subject that you want. Okay, drawing, pictures, right? I don't know about you, but for math, I'm a kinesthetic learner for math. If I have a problem, I've got to draw it out and draw myself like a little picture to help solve the problem. And maybe some of you are like that as well. But of course, drawing can be used in anywhere, any subject. Okay, humor, right? So you can't ever discount the power of humor. And again, when we talk about our anticipatory sets, using a mnemonic device, right? We can remember the 4 parts of an anticipatory set, at least according to Marcia Tate, right? Is we can remember those. A discussion, right? And the discussion can be turn to a partner and blah, blah, blah. It could be a whole group discussion. It could be kids working in groups of 4 talking. I mean, there's lots of ways that we can do discussion. Obviously, games, right? Games, again, because a lot of games involve movement. As soon as you put that kinesthetic element in there, it helps, again, retain long-term memory. Project-based learning or instruction. Of course, when kids are working on projects and creating things, we've talked about that already. Field trips, of course, field trips are great. We just don't go on them very often because they're super duper expensive, right? Does anybody know how much it costs to rent a yellow cheese wagon bus? Does anybody know? Trying to write Saskatchewan. I agree with you on that one. Does anybody know how much it costs to rent just a yellow school bus? Right? A minimum of $500. So even before you get out of the parking lot, it costs you $500 for that field trip. And so there's lots of schools that can't afford field trips, right? And that's often what parent councils or other types of fundraisers, they raise money for field trips. So kids can go to the zoo or they can go to the Space and Science Center or wherever you're taking them. But it costs a lot of money. One of the saddest moments in my recent teaching history was those of you who have ever been involved in one of our math fairs. Was it last? Yeah, last year there was a school that wanted to come to math fair but couldn't because it was in spring term, right? Or sorry, in winter term towards the end, like March, April, and they couldn't afford the bus. So they had no money, so those kids couldn't come to math fair. That's kind of sad, right? A sad state of our education system, okay? Work-study programs where it's like work experience, that kind of idea, right? Technology, right? We've used lots of technology in this class, obviously. And then manipulatives, right? Again, we use lots of manipulatives in science and math and things like that. And maybe, well, even art, drama, that kind of idea, okay? So all of these things are things that you could do in a CHU. And just like, major point here, this is not an exhaustive list. This is just 20 ideas that Marcia Tate gives, but there are many, many other ways that you can do an activity, right, or activities during the teaching learning process. Okay, so in our notes, you don't have to write these down. If you did, that's okay. Or you can just have this chart or copy it down. I won't test you on, name 5 of Tate's CHU activities. I'm not going to test you on that, but I might ask you about the list, who created the list, that kind of stuff. So just keep this as a reference, okay? All right, now, just one second here. I'm just going to find my mouse arrow again. Where the heck did it go? There it is. Okay, next thing I want to talk to you about, and I just want to kind of give it a bit of an honorable mention, is another, I don't guess, kind of like proof that this content chunking idea works. Okay. And what I want to talk to you about, because you could apply this to yourself right now, or if you're like, nah, that doesn't really work for me, you're going to have students that are going to come to you and say, Mr. So-and-so, Ms., whoever, I really studied hard for that quiz or that test, and I still didn't pass it. I don't understand what I'm doing wrong. Right? Or something like that. Or we've all like gone, okay, everyone, for class next time, please read chapter 3. And then you look at chapter 3 and it's like, oh my God, it's 30 pages long, right? And there's no pictures, right? That kind of idea. So there's a method that we can use in our learning that helps us, and not just in our learning, really in any sort of task that seems big or like, oh, you're dreading, where you can break it down in smaller pieces, right? Or smaller chunks, and then accomplish that task, right? So anyways, the method is called the Pomodoro method. Pomodoro method. Okay. And like I said, it gets honorable mention because it supports this idea of content chunking. It's personally, I use it. It's an effective method to take those big 30-page chapters and break it down into chunks, or that big assignment that Brad asked you to have for next class. And you're like, oh, it's going to take me 3 hours to do that, right? And it might. This lesson plan assignment that's coming up might take you that long, okay? So how do you then tackle that and not go crazy? Well, the Pomodoro method is one way. So first of all, the person who came up with this idea, Francesco Cirillo, I think I'm spelling his name right. Okay. He came up with this method. And if you're familiar with Italian, Pomodoro means tomato. Okay. Why he calls it the tomato method or Pomodoro method, I'm not 100% sure, but it's a great metaphor. Okay. So basically the premise of the Pomodoro method is that you take those big chunks and you break it down into segments of 25 minutes of work and 5 minutes of rest, or what, a get up, go to the bathroom, grab a coffee, kind of 5 minutes idea. Okay. And of course that is equivalent to, I'm not sure that's how you draw equivalent, but you know what I mean? This kind of ratio that we've already talked about, 20 minutes or 7 new pieces of information. So what happens is Cirillo says, okay, you've got, let's say 3 hours that today I can afford, or I've got 3 hours for my studies. Okay. And so what he says is that you break down these chunks. So he said, so your first, he calls them palms, right? We call them segments. Your first palm is 25 minutes of work, 5 minutes of break time. Okay. And then you come back, you come back and you do another 25 minutes and you take a 5-minute break. And so I'm going to use 5 palms or 5 segments as our example. So we're going to have, our next palm, or after we come back from this break, we work again, another 25. And then what he says is you take a longer break. Okay. And just from my own experience, you could stretch it to 15 minutes, but I tell you, if you take a 20-minute break, Bradley for sure, the chances of you actually coming back to that assignment or whatever it is that you're working on definitely decreases. Okay. So I would say that you stay with about a 10-minute break, and then you come back and you finish how many ever more palms you can do. Okay. And so again, just like this 20 and 7 ratio, we'll call it, right, it's a guideline. It's not a rule, right? It's a guideline. And we remember, right, for big people, right, it's 20 and 7. For littler people, right, it can be 5 minutes, right? It can be 5 minutes and 2 new things, right? So for me, again, personally, my palms, I make them 20 minutes. And then I have my 5-minute break, 20 and 5, 20 and 5. So anyways, it's a interesting method to break down those big tasks. Now, on his website, if you just check out Pomodoro method, you'll find the website. He's marketed all kinds of gimmicky things that are tomato based, and there's tomato timers and things like that. You don't need any of those gimmicky things. You've got one of these, set a timer for 5 minutes and then have a 5-minute break. Or if you use a Chrome browser, like I do, there is, and I'll just scooch on down here. There is, what I've got right here. And it's probably really small for you, but right here, I have an extension called Marinara. Again, you can't use the Pomodoro word if you're not the original person because he's trademarked that name. But they call it Marinara. And what this extension does is it allows you to set up how long you want your segments or your palms, right, to be. Now, again, that's really small, but you can set it to 25. You can set it to whatever time you've got, right? At the end of the 20 minutes, you sound a timer. I don't know, we'll just go clock or whatever, right? And then when you complete that 20 minutes, what sound do you want? There's your break for 5 minutes. Again, remember your long break right here. This is your long break, right? And so there's a whole, somebody's just come up with an extension in the Chrome browser that you can use to do this. Okay, so it's a great method for us to use to break down those big tasks. Or think of this in your classroom. You've got your kids working, and you could apply the Pomodoro method even to, classwork. That's right. All right, everyone, what we're going to do is we're going to work for 20 minutes. At the end of 20 minutes, we get a break. And then when you come back from your break, you're going to work for another 20 minutes and that whole idea. So you could do that, implement it right in your classroom. And again, working with the brain science that we know is that, again, kids can concentrate or work for such a long period of time before they need a break. So the Pomodoro method is a great, great method. Interestingly enough, along that same line, I found this on YouTube. Let me just bring it over to my screen over here. I thought this is really interesting. I'll make it full screen so it's easier to see. But what you're doing here is there are YouTube videos that you can watch, and there's this, her name's Storm Reed, and you study with her. And she sets up, and I'll just show you here. I'll just go a little farther here. Right? She sets up. Okay, let me just play it for 1 sec here. It's not what she's saying you're doing. There we go. Look at it. She sets up a 25-minute timer, and there's music playing. She's actually doing her homework. What a great gimmick. She's doing her homework, and then at the end of 25 minutes, you take a break. And in this session, it's for 1 hour and 30 minutes. So kind of interesting that they even have this concept on YouTube, right? And it's just a sort of like a study with me YouTube video. So kind of interesting that we have that. Let me just see what else in my notes I want to talk about. I think that's about it for now. Any thoughts, comments, things you want me to go over again? No, everybody's good. All right. Well, you say you're good because you don't have any questions. Let's find out how good you are. So if you have the Kahoot app on your phone, go ahead and use it, or on another device. We're going to play a couple of Kahoots right now. Okay, just as a review. Let me just find it in my bookmarks. There we go. All right, let me just bring this over to the main screen. There we go. Okay, and I'll just go classic mode here. Start. All right, we'll get everybody to sign up or sign in, not up, sign in. Dylan, are you in? All right, we're going to start in 10 seconds. All right, I'm just loading. Okay, let me know when you're ready to go. Perfect. Okay. I think that's every 2, 4, 6, 8. Yep, that's perfect. Okay, here we go. Let's start this. All right, this is all about Hunter's methodology. All right, what is the anticipatory set used for? Eight seconds. All right. If you said to focus the attention of the students on the teacher, you are correct. Summarize the lesson does not happen in anticipatory set. And to demonstrate is also a separate, both the red one and the green are both separate elements of Hunter's methodology by themselves. So if you didn't know that, now you do. And I would just make sure that you know what each step is and what each step does for a quiz that may be coming your way in the near future. Okay. All right. How do we do here? All right. Here we go for the next one. Now, points, of course, we're playing Kahoot, so points are important if they're important to you, but getting the correct answer is even more important. Okay. All right. Number 2. The blank is what students will be able to know or do by the end of a lesson according to the government and the curriculum. So what does a government or the curriculum give us? All right. If you're still waiting to answer, you've got 8 seconds. There we go. Okay, so outcomes is the correct answer. If you set objectives, in the United States, they use outcomes and objectives synonymously as the same thing. Here in Canada, we don't. So outcomes are the things that students should be able to do, and that comes from the government in the form of our programs of study or curriculum, right? Objectives are, and as we've got kind of listed on our lesson plan template, are our learning strategies, right? So for example, an outcome might be is that students will be able to demonstrate the ability to do long division, okay? Then our objectives or our learning strategy would be what either you're going to do, but mostly what students are going to do to achieve that outcome, right? So an objective or a learning strategy might be is that students will work with a partner to do whatever, blah, blah, blah. Students will work independently. Students will watch a video, then answer the questions to get to where you want them. So when you think of objectives, think of the learning strategies that you might employ in a lesson that gets you to the outcomes. Okay. All right. Let's see how we did here. Kayla's still in the lead. All right. Here we go. Next one. Number 3. Define instructional input. So what is instructional input? Right. And we've got that right on our lesson plan template. What is input? Now, I'll give you a hint. If we were doing long division, I would say divisor, dividend, quotient. Those are things that students need to know, right? So the correct answer is the terms, the vocabulary that you need as the teacher to give to the students so they understand when I say, okay, ladies and gentlemen, people, folks, here is this number right here inside the little, dividing bracket that is called the dividend. How do I remember that? Dividend, right? So inside the little bracket thing there, the little L, right, that is the dividend. And then that helps students remember that the outside number is a divisor and the number on the top is a quotient. So again, those are words that we need to know in order to achieve that outcome and understand the different words and things that they need to know for that task. All right, just a little change of places, but holy smokes, Michaela, you are going to be untouchable here, I think. Number 4, this is how you will show the skill to the students so they'll be able to do it. So what are you doing when you are showing it? All right, everyone got that one right. You're right. What is the other word that I would accept or that we can accept instead of modeling? What is the other word we could use? Nobody remembers? The other word that we can use or that I would accept, there we go. Thanks, Elaine, is demonstration. So yes, so if you said demonstration, again, if you were going to have to tell me this on a quiz or something, I would also accept demonstration. Okay, excellent. All right, what do we got going on here? All right, Michaela, still on the lead. And Kayla, good job. Everyone, good job. Here we go. Next, number 5. The most used method of checking for understanding during a lesson is what? What is our sort of primary thing that we can do all day long, every lesson, everything to check for understanding? And if you said asking questions, you are right. Homework we can use, but not at this step. We're getting close to when we can when homework kind of comes into the picture. Okay. All right. How are we doing here? All right. And number 6 is guided practice is done under what? What do you got for this one? 9, 8, 7. Right, under teacher supervision, right? So again, you think we go back to our long division example. I'm going to write an equation on the board, and then I'm going to say, all right, Mira Joy, what is the first step? Great job. All right, Dylan, what do you do next? Excellent, right? And I'm going to walk you through whatever it is that you're supposed to end up doing on your own, right? So now we've done this guided practice. Then what, right? The next step. So let's see, check out scores first. All right. Number 7, independent practice is done. All right. So it is not done before guided practice because guided practice comes much before that. Okay. But it is with the teacher supervision in class. And so remember the last answer where whoever answered homework, in independent practice, this is where we can assign homework. But remember the tip or the piece of advice that I gave you is do not just during independent practice say, all right, everyone, do questions 1 to 10 on page whatever of the book, and I'll see you tomorrow, right? During independent practice, you want to try where you possibly can in your lesson is give your students a few minutes to try the new concept or whatever that you just taught them so that you can walk around the room and go, okay, yep, I think they got it, right? Or maybe they don't, right? And if they don't, at any point where you're going, okay, no, they don't get it, you got to loop all the way back up to modeling and then work your way through again, okay? So try when possible, and I know it's hard because we have so many things to teach and so little time to do it in, but where you absolutely can, try always to build in time for independent practice, okay, in class. All right, next. How did we do here as far as scores go? Nobody moved, just the numbers. Okay, here we go. Number 8. Your lesson plans must include every element of Madeline Hunter's steps all the time. There's a picture of Madeline doing in her very stylish outfits. The answer is false, okay? The only time that you generally would use all of the steps, because remember, the Madeline Hunter's methodology is designed for, I'm giving a question away here or an answer away here, is designed for direct instruction. That is when you are standing in front of the class and delivering, right? And you're teaching something new, right? So you don't always use all the steps. And some people may really never use all the steps depending on the way they teach. But I can tell you whether you're doing project-based learning or some other type-based learning, you will use elements of Hunter's steps, Okay, so you don't always use it. Again, the key word here was all the time, right? You don't. Okay, there again. So if we've already done my introduction lesson to long division, so tomorrow I probably wouldn't use all the steps again. Definitely would have an anticipatory set, but I might have one segment, and in that segment you are all going to work for 30 minutes of the class, and then we'll have a quick conclusion, and I'll send you on your way to your next class or something like that, right? So you don't use all the steps all the time. Okay, all right, how did we do here? All right, same thing. No new people, just new numbers. All right, number 9. What is the primary purpose of Hunter's and Tate's lesson plan, of course, which is our lesson plan template? What is it? What is the primary purpose? All right, everyone got that one right. It is to enhance student learning, okay? And of course, all of our lessons, that is the purpose of any lesson, regardless of what method you use to deliver your content. The purpose is to get kids to know stuff, right? All right, here we go. Same thing. All right. Hunter's lesson plan is dependent on teaching style, specifically direct instruction. True or false? I already gave you the answer to that one. Okay. Okay, of course, the answer is true. And again, people who kind of say Hunter's method doesn't work are not employing or using the method in the way that she designed it for, which was direct instruction. Okay, nice work. Okay, I believe this is the last question. Times 2 points. Peer teaching is the 9th step of Hunter's things. Whose idea was it? Five seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. If you said Fred Jones, you are correct, and all of you did, so that's awesome. Okay. If you picked any of the other ones, you're just obviously a Hollywood actor fanatic. All right, let's see how everybody did. The bronze medal going to Kayla. Nice work, Kayla. All right, the silver going to Jennifer. And who is in the spotlight grabbing the gold is Michaela. Woo! All right. Okay, so nice work, everyone. If there were, so again, this is a review thing, right? So this is what we call formative assessment, right? Assessment during learning is what a formative assessment is. Know that for a quiz. Formative assessment is assessment during the learning process, right? If this was a quiz and it was for marks, then and we're done talking about Hunter's lesson planning methodology, and it's like a unit quiz or end of the chapter quiz. We call those at the end of learning, we call those summative assessments or summary assessments. Okay, so let's just take, now we don't need to look at anything else. Let's go and let's do another Kahoot. Now, you're probably going to end up getting the same login like code. This has happened yesterday, so you might just have to put your last initial on your name. So, and then you can just use the same code. But let me just bring up, I'm just going to close that one, and let me bring up the other one. Okay, and that is this one. And this one is a little review on Bloom's taxonomy. Okay, so again, formative assessments are also for your use, right? Is that if there are questions in that review that you did not get, that then is your clue or your indication to, man, this is stuff I need to study before the next, I need to use it the next time, right? So formative assessments are helpful to both of us, okay? It looks like you might be able to sign in with just your name without your initials, so that looks good. And while you're waiting, if you didn't know, you can click on your little avatar here and you can change it. So if you don't like what you look like, you can click on it and change it so that you're not the same as somebody else, or you can find a cute one. All right, Gracie, are we missing anybody here? 2, 4, 6, 7. Is there, who's not in there? Kayla, are you going to join? Oh, there you go. Perfect. Okay. All right. So here we go. Bloom's taxonomy, and this is just all about Bloom's again here. And so just let's see what you can remember about Bloom's. What year did he do his original taxonomy? Because remember, in class, yay, 56, right? Okay. So remember, in class, we talked about there's sort of three versions of it. So the original version was in 1956, correct. And here we go. Emma's in the lead. All right. And then his original taxonomy was revamped in what year? And again, that was by Craswell and Anderson, Laurie Anderson being Benjamin Bloom's doctoral student. What year was that? All right, 4 seconds. 3, 2, 1. All right. If you answered 2001, you are correct. Okay. All right. Next one. A little change. All right. Number 3, Bloom's revised taxonomy. I gave you the answer to this already. Was done by who? Right. The revised taxonomy is the one that we use, and it was in 2001 by whom? And as we're just waiting here, it's the time to tick down. If you look at the pictures, is just a different version of Bloom's taxonomy. Remember, I said we use the pyramid as our main kind of picture, but there's lots of other ways that people have represented it. All right. If you said Craswell and Anderson, you are correct. Okay. All right. How are we doing here? All right. Jennifer's in the lead, but not by a lot. Number 4 says times 2 points. Asking your students to recall the provinces and capitals of Canada is at what level of Bloom's taxonomy? And again, as you're waiting there for the time to tick down, if you look at the little picture on there, what you notice is that there's 2 sets of words for each step, right? The words in white are the original 1956 version. So in white, we started at the bottom, or at the bottom, it used to be evaluation and then synthesis, then analysis, then these ones. And then the ones in yellow are the revised taxonomy, are the revised taxonomy from 2001. So you can see that they're kind of similar, but I think the update makes better sense for what we're doing. Okay, so there is our Bloom's. How did we do on that one? A little bit of a change of people. All right, here we go. Number 5, another times 2. Asking your students to design something is at what level of Bloom's taxonomy? And again, as you answer, you can look at the picture of Bloom's taxonomy and look how different that is from a pyramid, right? So if you said creating, you are correct. Okay. Design, illustrate, author, create, produce. Those are all fall under the word creating at that level of Bloom's. All right. Number 6. How many domains does Bloom's taxonomy have? Right? If you said 3, you are correct. If you said 6, when we have our pyramid or a triangle, right, we have those 6 levels of Bloom's taxonomy. But those 6 levels, the ones that we talked about, right, where it's remembering, understanding, all the way up to creating and sharing, right, those are only for the cognitive domain. And so there were 2 other domains. One started with the letter A and one started with the letter P, right? So if you said 6, you're thinking of that remembering, understanding, leveling your way up, scaffolding your way up. So 6 levels. And if you look at the domain that starts with A or the domain that starts with P, I think the A one only has 5 levels. So depending on the domain that you're in, Also depends on how many levels there are. So that's the difference. So the correct answer is 3. Okay, so I got you on that one, and one person got that correct, and we'll see what we got here as far as the leaderboard goes. Jen's still in commanding lead, Jennifer. Nice. Okay, here we go. Number 7. What year was sharing added to Bloom's taxonomy? Okay. So again, we got this light bulb here, right on. There we go. 2017 is correct. And again, in my research, I can't find a person who did it, but there was like an organization that came up with that level. So anyways, the correct answer is 2017. Nice work. Okay. Here we go. Jennifer is on a streak. The bottom 3 levels of Bloom's are considered what? And the correct answer is lower order thinking skills. Okay, so keep that one in mind. There might be a question about the other one. Okay, all right, how are we doing here? All right. Number 9. In designing lessons, where do you find the different levels of Bloom's? Right, so you're going to create a lesson plan. Where do you find them? Okay, you're right. The programs of study, which I guess in a way would be on the web, I guess, unless you're using a printed version. But the best and most correct answer is in the programs of study. All of the outcomes basically start with a Bloom's word. Okay. And I'm not going to say what kind of word because that's a question coming up. But so yes, in our program, in our curriculum, all of the outcomes are Bloom's related, right? Students will demonstrate, students will identify, students will list, right? All of those words are all Bloom's words. So again, what Bloom did back in 56, he kind of nailed it, right? All right. What do we got here? All right. Jennifer is got a commanding lead. All right. Number 10. What is the domain of Bloom's that teachers use the most? I'll give you a hint. It's a triangle one that we demonstrated. What does that one come from? Remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, that one. If you said cognitive, you are correct. Cognition, I guess if you argued, you could use that one, but really it is the cognitive domain. We don't call it the cognition domain. Okay, all right. So what do we got going on here? Just a little change in people, a little change of places. All right, we've got number 11. The domain that deals with emotions or feelings is what domain? And again, if you look at the picture on the screen, it is a picture of the old Bloom's taxonomy. And again, not represented as a pyramid, right? Okay, so we had knowledge at the bottom and evaluation was at the top. And obviously that's not the way it is now. Anyways, emotions and feelings, yes, under the affective domain. Okay, so nice work. All right, here we go. Number 12, 2-point question. Having students do a dance improvisation in drama would be what domain? Look at that nice butterfly. All right. If you said psychomotor, you are correct, right? All the other 3 aren't actually domains. So remember, we've got cognitive domain, we have the affective domain, and we have the psychomotor domain. Okay. So we kind of got all 3 things that really apply to human beings in the way that, we kind of learn. All right, how are we doing here? Oh, we got quite a big change of places. All right, Dylan, you're on a streak. Nice work. Okay, here we go. Number 13, the words used in Bloom's are. Okay, here's an English lesson. What are they? Are they nouns, verbs, adjectives, or swear words? I like the little picture of the owls. It's kind of cute. Number 4, 5 seconds and 4 seconds, 3 seconds. All right, the correct answer is verbs. Okay. because they're action words, right? Students will list, students will demonstrate. Those are all action words. Okay, nice. No one said swear words. All right, how are we doing here? Oh, Jen, what happened? Oh, Dylan dethroned her. Bye. You still can do it. There's still more questions, Jen. The top 3 levels of Bloom's is considered to be what? All right. Higher order thinking skills is correct. What was the picture on that one? Oh, yeah, there's an orange slice. So interesting. Okay, so how did we do? Oh, all right. The last question. It is a multi-select, which means there's more than one right answer. Bigfoot is real. Which one is it? Or which ones is it? Excellent work, everybody. Everyone got that question right. Excellent work. And how did we do here at the final? Taking home the bronze medal is Emma. Nice work, Emma. And the silver goes to Dylan. Uh-oh, does that mean that Jennifer is the gold medalist? Nice work. Okay, so again, Carl and Kayla, nice work. 2K names. Remember, so if there are ones in there that you missed, make sure that you kind of brush up on those. Those are kind of the general-ish kind of questions that I would ask on a quiz. So just make sure that you kind of have a little bit of an understanding on those. And of course, if you need to study for the quiz, you can always refer back to this video. Right now, just along those lines with the video, it is taking basically the whole day. It takes about like at least 3 hours for Google to send me an email saying, hey, your video is ready. And then it takes me time to edit the video a little bit. And then after I've edited it, then it takes another good hour to 2 hours to actually upload it and have the video ready to go, which if you add all that time up, you're looking at a full day. So generally, like by tomorrow, again, the video should be ready to go. So if you need to view it, you can do that. Okay. Any questions about Bloom's or Madeline Hunter / Tate's method? Gracie, you had a lot of problems there. That's okay. As long as you kind of follow along, that's really all that matters. But, and again, so, I mean, there's a perfect example why you should not use Kahoot as like a quiz or whatever for marks, okay? Because you get booted out, you have a good or bad Wi-Fi connection, or I don't know, Kahoot just decides to boot you out. I don't even know why people get booted out, but they do. I've been kicked out as well. So again, Kahoots are great for review and fun things, but they're certainly not something that you should use for high stakes kind of mark type related things. Okay. All right. So there doesn't seem to be any questions. So let's then leave. There we go. Okay. That then, let's see here, leads us all the way back to here, right there. So we finished up the LP notes. We've done that. So that really leads us to these last 3 things, okay? And I'm going to talk about this bottom one last, okay? So what I'd like us to do, or what I'd like you to do, is I'd like you, so we all know that we've got our brain plan, lesson plan template. And because I have not graded everybody's quite yet, what you can do is just go to your drive, find your lesson plan template, and just make a copy of it, okay? So you can do that. And so what we're going to do then is we're going to work through a lesson together so that you can see what I'm sort of what my thinking is and how I'd like you to develop these lessons. Now, as I say that, here's my, let me grab my copy. I'm just going to grab this copy. It doesn't really matter. I'll just change this to section Z. There we go. Okay. And so we all have our lesson plan templates, and they all should look pretty much the same, I think, other than colors and fonts and things like that. And again, I've got a pretty basic font here. My favorite right now is this Railway or whatever however you want to pronounce that word. And you can use whatever fonts you want because you are the only person that's really going to be using this. So if you want to use some fancy curly twervy font, knock yourself out. But remember that couple things is don't have super small fonts. I would say at a bare minimum that you go with a 12-point font. And I'd even say recommend that maybe even a 14-point font. You know what? All that's going to do is just make you have more pages, but who cares? Because again, when you're teaching, you might be teaching, you're going to have to look at that. And in order to look at it, you need that font to be big enough that not only can you read it, but B, that you kind of remember where you were in the lesson plan. Okay. And don't be afraid to put spaces between things. Like don't jam it on there and going, oh man, I got to try and fit this on 1 page or 2 pages. Just put it on as many pages as you want. And then you can just print them out. It doesn't matter. Okay. I'm just going to make mine just a smidge bigger like so. Okay. So just before we kind of get going here, what I want you to notice here is that in under week 3-4, we've got this completed brain lesson plan. Okay, so this is the assignment. So assignment 13, lucky 13. And in there is a ton of goodies in there. Okay, so there is a link to the programs that now this is the old programs to study, but you should also have it linked on your lesson plan. Okay, on your template. So then there's a quick little video about finding outcomes and how Brad wants them added to your lesson plan. Okay. And then the other one that we need to mention is about the ICT outcomes. So quiz question, ICT outcomes, what does ICT stand for? And that is information, communication, and technology. Okay. And if we look at these, oh, that's a video, sorry. I'll come back to them. Okay. Oops, there we go. Is that if you are going to incorporate any type of technology into your teaching where kids are using the technology, not you, right? Even if it's as simple as a calculator, you should have an ICT outcome on your lesson plan. Okay. Now, some of the new curriculum that's been produced incorporates technology or technological things already. But if let's say you're doing long division, and in that outcome, that math outcome, it doesn't say anything about kids using calculators to check their answers or things like that, then you need to go to the ICT outcomes and you need to incorporate the ICT outcomes, okay? And all of this old curriculum, every one of them looks different, okay? So I just want to talk about the ICT outcomes right now for a sec, okay? Because they are a little bit different in how they're laid out. I just want to see what I got on there. Okay. All right. So if we look at the ICT outcomes, okay, outcomes. Unlike all of the other curriculums, which are divided into grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, etc. Okay. The ICT outcomes are divided in what they call divisions. Okay, so the ICT outcomes are divided into division 1, division 2, division 3, and div 4. Okay, and you will hear people refer to div 1, div 2, div 3, div 4. And if you're not familiar with these already, div 1 is K to 3. Okay. Div 2 then, I mean, you can kind of figure this out, the pattern here, right? Div 3 is 7 to 9, I think it is. And div 4 is 10 to 12. There we go. Okay. So those are the different divisions. And again, no other curriculum that I've seen has that delineation or the groupings of divisions and groupings of grades like the ICT outcomes do. Okay. Now the ICT outcomes were developed in 2000. So if you think in technology years, that's like 1,000 years ago, right? I mean, 20 years in technology is a long time. But the interesting thing is the folks that developed this curriculum, actually what they've got there still really applies to what we do even now 24 years later, right? 23, 24 years later. So just so you know that, and test, hint, hint, quiz, you might find these on a quiz somewhere. Okay. So, and why we mention them again, not only because if you use technology in a lesson, you should add them, but also it is really the foundational piece of the curriculum for this course. Okay. Is these ICT outcomes. Okay. All right. Let's go back here for a sec. So on this document, there is just a ton of different links that you can access. Now, this is horrible, but again, it's really designed for looking at your screen. But there's all these links to all these different things. And if you want to make a copy of this, you can do that. I mean, any of the resource that I ever give you, if you want it or you think you might use it later on, please feel free to make a copy of it. This is just a listing of Hunter's steps. You can, again, take a look at these. We've talked about them in class. We talked about, did we talk about this 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 grouping? Did we talk about that? Yep. Okay, perfect. Okay. So then let me just scooch on down here to outcomes versus objectives. We'll come back to that in a sec. Okay. So remembering, our 20 and 7 rule, but remember now that I've sort of taken Jensen's list and extrapolated it a little bit more for our purposes. So again, if you're dealing with, kids in the, upper high school grades or adults, you have this, 20 minutes and 7 new things rule. Okay. Again, we're going to use these as guidelines. And then of course, as the kids get younger, so does the time decreases. And so does the number of new items that we expect them to retain, right? So if you are going to be, teaching outside of this, 20 and 7 thing, then you please refer to this chart for how much time you have. So this helps with 2 things. One is how much time can my chunk be? And how much time could my chew be, right? And you've got this amount of time. Let's say you're teaching K-2. You've got that amount of time, okay? So the other one that's really super duper important for all us to sort of literally be on the same page is this one, okay? And I'll make it bigger too, okay? I can make it really big. Is our times for instruction, and we can change that to 24 to now, okay? And it's this, is that we have to come up with some time for how long is your class going to be. So what we can decide here is for K-2, 20-minute, if you're going to teach math, you have 20 minutes. Your whole class, math class is 20 minutes. That's it. Okay. Or pick your subject. You get 20 minutes to do that. Okay. If you are in grades 3 to 6, I would, even though we've got a range here, I would just go with the max time for all your lessons, because the more time you have, the better. Okay. And then you can see as it progresses up to 10 to 12, if you want to use 80 or 90 minutes as your max, go ahead and do that. Okay. So that's important, because also the max amount of time that you have to actually your classes or to teach it is also determines how many segments you can have. So I want you to here, test question, quiz question, final exam question. What is the minimum amount of segments you can have on a brain lesson plan? What is the minimum amount? 1 is the correct, thank you. Yes, 1 is the correct answer. Okay. And then the other one that I could stump people on is what is the maximum amount of segments you can have? And the correct answer would be something along the lines of there is no max. It depends on how much time you have to teach the lesson, right? Because I mean, even in a 90-minute lesson, you could literally only have 1 segment. Right? That would be the minimum, but you could also have potentially 6 segments, right? I mean, just depends on what you're teaching and all that kind of stuff. And if you have 90 minutes, that's a significant amount of time. So you could have definitely, 3, but you could have definitely more too. Okay. So these 2 documents are really important for all of us to keep in mind as we are designing our lessons. So if you create a lesson plan, once we get to the point where you're going to create your own lesson plan on a grade topic subject that you want to teach, then you need to make sure that you are following. So if you say this is a grade 10 chem, class, then I'm going to expect to see 90 minutes on your lesson plan. And how does Brad check that, right? Well, you've listed all your times down this column. So when I add all those up and I get down here, they should add up to 90 minutes. They shouldn't add up to 83 minutes. They shouldn't add up to 94 minutes, because if you're short, the question is, well, what are you going to do with that extra time? Or if you're over, this is math or chem or whatever 10, you know they're going somewhere else. So you can't keep them for 10 more minutes, because the next teacher that they're going to is going to be going, hey, McDermott, what are you doing? That's 10 minutes of my whatever class. You can't do that, right? So this needs to add up to whatever we've decided as our maximum times, okay? So you need to keep that in mind when we're planning our times over here. Now, the other piece of advice that I would give you, and again, this is just from experience, is that when you are doing your chew, so, I'll do it down here. So I've taught my content on, I don't know, long division. I'll keep using that one, right? Your activities, I would say that, again, dependent on the lesson, but if it's just a turn to your neighbor or that kind of idea, that these two activities should probably be in and around the 10-minute length period of time, okay? Now, of course, there's instances where there might be 30 minutes, right? But as just a general guideline, 10 minutes I think is a good time frame for the activity. Your chunk, of course, is determined by our other charts over here, okay? All right, let's go back here for a second. So we've got that 20 activities card, choose card from Marsha Tate. There's our blooms. So remember, in or under blooms, we have this folder that's called the most important blooms. So that's where you're going to find your different domains, right? So again, if you are doing a class where you are working in the affective domain, then here they are. And again, if students are going to defend their position on, I don't know, nationalism versus, I don't know, communism or something, I don't know, some ism, right? Then again, what you're going to do over here in the Bloom's taxonomy column is go A3. And of course, don't forget, you could have a C2 and you could even have a P4, right? It just depends on what you're doing here. So it's not just limited to, I mean, minimum of one thing, but there really is probably no maximum, okay? And where do you get them? Is under this Bloom starter kit, most important. And of course, most of us are going to spend our time in the cognitive domain, right? So those are C1, 2, 3, 4. So you don't have to give me the word. I don't need the word. I just need the number, okay? Sorry, if you said this right, okay, I haven't actually, Gracie, I haven't decided what grade and stuff we're going to do for our demo lesson yet. Okay, so anyhow, that is here for your use. Okay, the other thing that I included here is a link to my exit card folder. Okay, so if you want, you can access and use or copy the whole folder of any of these different exit cards. And by no means are these are the only exit cards in the whole wide world. That's not true. Okay. But if there's one in here that that you like or would like to use, knock yourself out and you can do that. Okay. So I just deleted a couple of things here that we don't really actually need in there. There we go. So there's a few. It just gets you started. Okay. Again, here, what we're looking at, the next thing in our list is objectives exemplars. And so if you're thinking like, oh, what learning strategy do I need to use? I've given you some examples here, and I'll make that bigger so it's easier for you all to read too, right? Students will be able to watch a video and actively take notes. Students will work independently on an activity sheet, right? Students will take accurate and effective notes on key terms listed, right? So there's just some examples here that you can use if you're stuck for an objective or learning strategy, okay? And then there is how I'd like you to cite or add on your lesson plans, how I'd like you to add the different outcomes. And I don't have an ELA and a math one listed there yet, but we might end up doing those. Okay. So this is kind of the style that I'd like to see. And we'll do that when we do the lesson plan together. I'll leave that one open. Okay. And then of course we have the old curriculum. So again, if you're teaching K to 6, you have a new curriculum that you're going to access. If you're teaching grades 7 to 12, you're still using the old outcomes. Okay. And so the new outcomes, again, how I'd like them cited is as you see it here. Okay. And there is a little video here if you need to watch a little video on this. Okay. So it's a little bit more complicated, or how I'd like you to list it is a little bit more complicated than when we deal with the old ones. Okay. All right. And then we'll scooch on down here. I did just add a sample lesson plan here just to kind of remind you of what this might look like in the end. Okay. And then there's the rubric. Okay. So for this assignment, you are going to create a lesson plan, and then you make a copy of this rubric, and you then will indicate where you think you land on that rubric, right? And so wherever you think, and then of course we may or may not agree on that, but we'll see in the end. But it's quite a comprehensive one, I think, as far as rubrics go. And I'd like you to pay specific attention to this area right here, is that when I look at your lesson plan, I'm going to look at it and think in my head, could you actually teach this lesson? Using this lesson plan, if I were a sub and I was coming into your chem class or your art class or whatever class it is, if I picked that up, could I actually use it to teach? And if my answer is no, then of course your mark will go down. Okay. And so I'll tell you right now, I want you to design those lessons like you're planning for a sub. And don't forget, it might be your principal. So if they have to pick up that lesson plan and they got to cover your class for whatever reason, and they can't teach them that lesson plan, you're going to hear about it. So make sure that the teachability, that lesson plan can actually really be used by a substitute teacher. So that means that you need to go into great detail about what's going to happen, right? On my lesson plans for you, because I've been teaching this class for 20 years, my lesson plans are much simpler than what I'm asking you to do. And that will you potentially in 5 years from now, what you will be doing, right? But we're going to teach you how to do proper lesson plans between now and the time you exit your program in 4 years, so that you are going to pass your student teaching rounds, because again, under TQS number 3, I think it's 3, actually A is your ability to long range plan, which is year plans, your ability to do medium range plan, which is unit plans, and short-term planning, which is lesson plans. And if you can't do those 3 things, you are not going to be successful in your student teaching rounds. Or if somehow you fake it till you make it and you get through your 3rd and 4th year practicums and you end up with your own classroom, and now for the next 2 years you're going to be evaluated by your admin and a bunch of other people, if you don't have good lesson plans, you're not going to get a continuing contract. Okay, so lesson planning is absolutely one of the most important things that you're going to take away from your whole program over the next 4 years. So that's why this one's worth 12 marks and all the rest of them are worth 4. Okay, so in the end, if you add all those up, if my math is correct, which is not always the case, it should be 56 marks. And again, of course, you make a copy of this and then you can highlight it, add an emoji, do whatever you want to do to indicate where you think you fall under the rubric. Okay, now there's a couple of areas on outcomes. It contains 1 or 2 appropriate outcomes. Okay, even for a 90-minute lesson, saying that you're going to do 4 outcomes is probably not reasonable. And someone's going to call you on that. They're going to say, do you really think you can do 4 outcomes in 90 minutes? Probably not. You could do 4 outcomes in 4 days or 4 lessons, but doing them all in 1 day, probably not. Okay. And the same thing goes with learning strategies. Really, contains 3 or more appropriate learning strategies or objectives. And again, really, what that is largely dependent on is how many segments you have. Okay, because you're gonna have a chunk and you're gonna have a chew, and for each chew, each thing that's occurring in a segment, you're going to need some type of learning strategy, like the ones that we had listed before. Okay, and of course, assessments need to be reasonable, right? I mean, one of the ones that you could add in here just by default, if you wanted, is just check for understanding, right? Because we're going to do that 1,000 times a day, is we're going to ask students questions, right? So you could add check for understanding and just leave it on your template if you really wanted to. Okay. All right, let's go back here. And then that's all of the things that are in here. There's a ton of things, but they're all really important resources for you to have at the ready for when you're planning a lesson. Okay. All right. So I'm just going to save that for a second. And that leads us on my tiny Apple timepiece up here to 10:30. So why don't we take a 15-minute break till 10:45. And then what we can do is we'll come back and we'll plan a lesson based on an actual grade topic and subject. Okay. If you've got questions, write them down, hold on to them, and then when we come back, we can talk about them. Okay. So in the meantime, like I always do, is I'm going to mute my mic and mute my camera, and I'm going to go stretch my legs and get a drink and all that jazz, which you should be doing too. Okay. Thanks, everybody. I'll see you in about 15 minutes. All right. It is 10, not yet. So if you're doing grade 2 art lessons, you need to have 3 segments. Well, again, it depends on the amount of time you have for that art class. Okay. If you're doing a grade 2 art class, you probably have about 20 to 30 minutes that you're going to do. Art is a little bit different because there's a lot of activity and fun stuff to do. So you can, if we look at our, times for instruction and our other chart here for our 20 and 7 kind of ratios, you could, again, they're guidelines. I mean, kids love to draw pictures and paint and do stuff, and they can do that for a long time. So I would say that if you're doing a grade 2 art lesson, I would say that, even based on our chart here, I would say that you could go 30 minutes max though. Okay. So there's that. And then again, 30 minutes max, probably 1 segment. I would say probably not more than that. And with 1 segment, you're looking at, whatever art concept or idea it is, you're going to have kind of 1 thing that they're going to work on, maybe 2, but that kind of idea. Okay. So that's kind of how I'd approach that. All right. So speaking of lessons and all that jazz, it is now time for us to decide what we're going to do. So being very aware of where you all sit as far as grade, topic, and subject, it's all different, right? We're aware of that. So for me to say, randomly pick a grade, topic, subject, I'm going to have to do that, right? I can't do, well, there's eight of us. I can't do 8 separate demos for each one of you, but we can certainly do one for, a general kind of idea where we're going. Okay. So where I think I'm going to land is grade 6. Okay. So, it's literally halfway between, the grades. And I think that's not a bad place to start. Okay. So because we're going to do grade 6, then what we need to do is we need to go to the new curriculum. Okay. So if I use that link that I've got in my lesson plan, if you do not have it in your lesson plan, I'll paste it in the chat right now. Okay. So that you can have it. Okay. Because it's not actually on the same website as the old curriculum. So if you look at, here's the old curriculum, it's still Alberta government, but it is a different website than the old curriculum. You can still find, and I'll just show you here, you can still find the K-6 curriculum on here, but we're not going to use it. We might as well get used to using this new curriculum. And in my opinion, there are lots of things on here that teachers don't like or agree with, but I do like the way that it is. I think it is better organized than the old curriculum, and everything's the same. Unlike the old curriculum where, and I'll just give you an example here. Gracie, this one's for you, right? If we go arts grade 1 to 6, and we scooch on down here and go art 1 to 6 and open up this document. You don't have to do this. I'm just showing you this, right? The thing that I'd like to draw your attention to, and I'll just make this bigger, is this number right here. That is when this art curriculum was created in 1985. Okay, so to have some new curriculum being developed for all K to 12, but we have the K to 6 stuff. This is important for us to have. Okay, I mean, I'm not sure. I don't know enough about art to say that while, you know, things haven't changed that much, still doesn't matter whether it's 85 or 2020, whatever, right? But this curriculum's old, and lots of them are old like this. So, and when you look at this curriculum, I just want you to take a look at this and how it looks. And if I keep on scooching down here a little bit, it looks kind of like this. And it's a tough one. Art, phys ed, drama are those ones for sure are tough ones for beginning teachers to go, like, where do I kind of start? Okay. If we go to the old programs of study again, I'm just going to back out of here for 1 sec. And I'm just going to go, I'll go to science, for example, science K to 6. And I'm just going to show you here. So kindergarten. Oh, also, is there anybody in our class that wants to teach kindergarten? Emmeline, so Gracie, so maybe. So one of the things that you need to know is that under the old curriculum, they have these program statements. There's a formal kind of curriculum under grades 1 through 6, but there is this program statement. Under the new curriculum, where are we here? I can't remember what curriculum we're at. Oh yeah, under science, sorry. We go to science. In a kindergarten, okay, it is organized the same way as all the other curriculums. So it's really, really nice. And easy to sort of pick what we need. Okay, so we don't have to really worry about that. But here's what I want to look at as under 1 to 6. I just want to show you this. Just like, let's make this a little bit bigger. How about like so? So again, you can see this curriculum when it was developed was 1996. So having an upgrade to the new curriculum, science curriculum, kindergarten to grade 6. Being developed just here in the most recent, like 2023 kind of idea is really nice. But let's take a look at this old curriculum for 1 sec. You can see now that, let's get down to, is that this is what it looks like. So if you go back to the art one and you think about this one, they all look different. So one of the really nice things about the new curriculum is that it is uniform. Okay. Now, one of the other things that you need to know about the new curriculum is that there's sort of like a web-based version of it, and there is also a printable version of it. Okay. The printable one is handy in respect that, let me just back out of here for 1 second. And let's just go home for a sec. There we go. Okay. So when you're on the web-based one, and I'll just use grade 6 science right here as our example. What they don't do is they give you all the different guiding questions and organizing ideas and stuff, and that's all great. What they don't do, and I'll just get to the next one. Here's the next organizing idea, guiding question, etc. They don't give you a page number. Okay, where if you go to the printable ones, and I just want to see if that one actually downloaded. Yeah, right there. I'm just going to open this up. Just gonna wait for my software to open up here 1 sec. So anyways, the difference is that on the printable one, they give you a page number down here in the bottom corner. So in the way that I want you to cite your outcomes from where you get it from the new curriculum, especially, is I want you, no thanks. I want you to tell me what page number it came from. And more for my use than yours. Okay, because then it's an easy reference for me to go and go, yeah, okay, is that right what you put on your lesson plan? Or an administrator, it might be easier for them just to scooch down a page, whatever. Okay, so I want the page number on there, and really the only place you can find that is in the printed version. Okay, the other thing again that you might notice here, and it's really tiny, but it's right here, it says that it was created in March 2023. So less than a year ago. So way better than 96 or 85 or whenever. Much better. Okay. Now with the printable version, again, I just want to just slide this over for a second. You can see that they're sort of laid out a little bit differently than it is on the web-based version. So if you want to use the web-based version to find your outcome, that's great. But then you just need to refer back to whatever page number it is on the printed version. Okay, so because we're using the new curriculum, I'm just going to slide this over to, I'm going to slide this way over to a different window. Okay, now because we haven't decided what unit we're going to teach yet, that we have to figure that out. Okay, so because we're in grade 6, our basic sort of topics is matter, understanding the physical world, are deepened by investigating matter and energy. Okay, that is brand new. That is not in the old curriculum. This one is about energy. We scooch on down here, more about energy. Okay, and then the next one is Earth systems. Okay, and so then this is understanding the living world. Earth and space are deepened by investigating natural systems and their interactions. So this one is still a little bit like the old sky science unit from grade 6, if you remember all the way back to grade 6, and it's got some stuff here. Okay, and again, if you just keep on scooching down, then this one is living systems. So now we're talking about that. Okay, and then we just keep on scooching down. This one is about space, so understanding the living world again, through natural systems and their interactions. And you can see that we're talking about the sun and planets and moons and all that jazz. Okay, and then scooch on down here, we got computer science, brand spanking new to the grade 6 curriculum. And I'm glad that this is there. It is super duper important. So if you were doing this as your organizing idea and it's going to be computer science, you don't need to use that ICT curriculum. Okay, because it's got it built in right here. Okay, so that is interesting and good to know. And then we come down here, and then we're talking about the scientific method or methods. Okay, so that is also brand new to the grade 6 curriculum compared to the old curriculum from the 90s. And those are your main topics in grade 6 science. If you look again, and I'll just bring it over here to the big screen. If you look at the printable version, you might like this better, right? So, because they've got the topics right here, and it's kind of divided, I don't know, maybe a little bit differently. And you can use these green colors as a cue of when it is the next thing, right? So you keep on scooching down, and then there is computer science, right? And then we've got scientific method. So both the web-based version and the printable version are useful. And even if you have the printable version, it just is a PDF. You don't need to print it, literally print it out. So it is handy to use. Okay. Thoughts or questions thus far? Okay. So I do not necessarily know what I want to do yet here. So we've got matter. We've got the understanding the physical world. We've got Earth systems. We've got living systems. And we've got computer science. And what else am I looking at here? It's a scientific method. I want to do so. I really like space. So I don't know if I want to do that. I just want to check these out again. This is all new to me too. I have actually not taught this curriculum because that's just kind of the way it is. All right. I want to do, let's do, I just got to find grade 6 here somewhere. Hold on here. Okay, let's do this one. I want to do this. So we've got grade 6. So here's what we're going to do. I am literally going to copy all of, oopsie, I need to, okay, first things first, I just got to get this off our screen so I can see my lesson plan. So first of all, we know that our topic is going to be Earth systems. So we're going to type in Earth systems here, okay? And our date, again, I recommend just going day 01 or whatever date. So on our lesson plans, there's a couple things that we need to sort of, again, all be on the same page for, is you don't have to do day 1. This is the beginning of Earth systems. You can pop into day 5 or day 10 or day whatever. Okay. It doesn't matter to me what day it is, but when I look at your lesson plan and I go, okay, this is day 10, then it should kind of make sense that they already know some stuff. And now you're doing, you're building on that. Okay, you're scaffolding on that. Okay, so not all lesson plans have to be a day 1 lesson plan. The other thing that I wanted to say on that was what? I can't remember. It's going to come back to me though. Day 1, can't remember. Okay, the subject then here is, if I look at, again, I'm looking at my grade 6 right here, organizing idea. And so I got to look at these and, oh, I like this. Okay. So if we look at this here is, I am going to call this. Okay. So then from that sheet, our subject is Science 6, of course, Science 6. And now we're talking about the outcomes. So again, here, oops, shoot, just a sec here. Here's what I would like is, first of all, we need to grab this organizing, we need to grab this organizing idea. Okay, and I'm just going to copy that, literally just copy it. And then I am going to paste it in here. Now, remember that there's 2 ways we can paste. We can go Command or Control V and it pastes it in, but don't forget it's all white text. So we'd have to just make that a darker color. And that came in pretty good. If you want it to be, if you do Command or Control V and it comes in funky, remember that you can also go Command or Control Shift and then go V, and then it forces the pasted text to match the style and everything that you already got on the page. But this came in pretty good. So we've got the organizing idea, which is Earth systems. I'm just going to make that bold. Okay. And then again, if I come back here, the guiding question, I want that as well. And so here, this is our guiding question. So I'm just going to go click and I'm just going to go enter and I'm going to type in, I got to type in guiding question because I didn't copy that. Guiding question. Okay. And then I can paste it in. And again, it came in, actually, hold on for a second. If we go Command and Shift and V, then it brings it in black. Okay, so our guiding question is, what relationships exist between climate and the changes on Earth? And we've got one more to go on that, and I'll just click on this, is our actual learning outcome. And that is this guy right here. I'll copy that again, go back to my lesson plan. And this is going to be our actual outcome. And I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to Command Shift V and paste those in there. And I'm just going to make that bold. Okay. And I just want to make sure these are all the same size. Yeah, I'm going to make them a little bit bigger. There, I can make them 10. Okay. So those are the, oopsie, how come that one didn't go like that? 10. Weird. There we go. Okay, so I've got my organizing idea, I've got my guiding question, and I actually have the outcome. Okay, the only thing that we need to do on that is from page 48. Oops. Page 48. I'm just going to move my line over. Actually, you know what? Instead of moving my line, I'm just going to make that just a bit smaller, like 1 point smaller. There we go. So page 48. So that is what you'd need to have in this box. Okay, that's kind of a lot of work, but it is what it is. Now, I'm going to teach you how to do this kind of the wrong way. So when you get into third and fourth year, you're going to be taught a little bit of a different way. But because A, you're first years, and B, you've never taught this curriculum before, in all honesty, and I haven't either, looking at this, I'm like, I don't even really know what my assessments are going to be yet, because I don't even know what I want my students to do, all that kind of jazz. I have to make all the rest of this up. Okay, so I don't know what my assessments are going to be, other than I know that I will check for understanding and I will ask questions, and so I can have that on there. Okay, now under learning strategies, right, again, those or objectives, I don't have those yet, but I can tell you right where you're going to get those from. These are going to be whatever you ask students to do in the CHU activity. That is going to be, generally speaking, what you're going to put under your learning strategies. Okay, so here in and under anticipatory set, I'm just going to make this up really quick, that they're going to watch a video, and your CHU activity is that during the video, they're going to write down 3 important facts that they learned from the video. Then one of your learning strategies could be students will actively take notes while watching, accurate notes while watching a video or something like that. So that would be one of your learning strategies. And they're, like I said, generally speaking, they're based on whatever your CHUs are. Okay, so again, depending on how many segments you have, but also to be dependent on how many learning strategies you have. Now, could you have less? Could you have more? Absolutely, you could. Okay, it just depends, again, what you're trying to achieve in that lesson. Okay, now, that's a lot, right? And then input. So if we go back to our curriculum here, and I don't know if I can make this big. Oh yeah, there we can go. Can I go +1 +2? I don't even know what all those do. Anyways, you're just gonna have to bear with me here. So if we look here at these words, okay, so the knowledge that students need to know. So knowledge, immediately, we know this is cognitive domain. So in Bloom's taxonomy, this is cognitive domain. So Earth systems interact with the sun and each other to impact climate in various ways, including clouds, greenhouse gases, ice reflecting light from the sun, right? And then humans rely on the sun and Earth systems for a habitable climate. We've got latitude, proximity, elevation, urban, rural. There's just a ton of words that they need to know here. And all of these are not one lesson. This is a series of lessons. So you would need to choose, what part you're focusing on for this particular lesson. And what order you teach these in, I would say that here we go, that you would teach them kind of in this order so they understand that kind of stuff. Okay, so if we look, and I'm just going to move this to a different screen so that I can look at both, but type in here. Okay, so I'm just going to use a bullet point. So they're going to need to know, right, clouds, but within clouds, there are different types of clouds. So just to save time, I'm just going to put in cloud types. Okay, the other one in here that I'm going to add into here is greenhouse gas, more gases. Okay, and again, remember that input is the words, terms, phrases, jargon that people need to know, or your students need to know. And if I go back here, again, this might sound really duh to us as adults, but I mean, one of the other words is reflecting or reflection. So what then is a reflection, right? And that might be something that you could do in 30 seconds. Your students go, tell me what reflection is and how you understand it. And they might tell you, in 2 seconds what it is. And you're like, okay, we don't need to dwell on that point. The other thing here is, I think that is all I want. I just want to know. I might even do this. Just again, you as a new teacher and me as same thing, not really working with this curriculum before, there is no reason that you can't put in that whole part under knowledge that is listed in the curriculum document. And I'll just grab this again here and bring it over right here. I just copied and pasted that. So there is no reason that you can't include that in your overall outcome. And especially if it's going to help you kind of remember what the heck we're doing here. Let's make that a little bit bigger. Oh, nuts. I'm not going to make it bigger then. Okay. And so that will help us. So now we know that this is sort of what the students are supposed to know. Okay. Again, I don't have an assessment and I don't have my learning strategies yet. Okay. Now we're down to anticipatory set. And what we're going to do here is, what type of activity or what type of hook could we use to get students engaged with this content? Now, let me just click back on here for 1 sec. There we go. What do you think? What could we use? What could be just like an easy hook that we could use to get our students engaged with this topic at the very beginning? Nobody wants to suggest? Okay, well, if you can't think of anything, here's 2 things that I think. I think if we're talking about how the sun and all its impact on climate is, one of the things that you could do is a mind map. Okay, now a mind map and ask. So if we're going to, let's say, talk about greenhouse gases specifically, let's say even in this lesson, we're going to specifically talk about greenhouse gases. I could have them create a mind map about what do they know about climate change and greenhouse gases. And they could create a mind map of however big of a mind map they get. And maybe we could say, you know what, on your mind map, and we'll just do the typical circle with spokes coming off of it, that on that mind map, they need to try to list at least 10 things. Okay. If they can't, that's okay. Because what we're going to do is I'm going to go around the class after and say, okay, Mirajoy, what did you get? Okay, good. We don't have that on our mind map yet. Let's add that. And then Kayla, what did you get? And we'll add that. And then of course, if you didn't have those on your mind map, you should add them. And you could add them in a different color or whatever. But what I'm doing there is not only getting them to do something and getting them to focus on me and on what we're about to do, but it's also a little bit of an assessment, right? It is an informal, right, during learning, formative assessment to see what they know. And really, that's the kind of thing that you should do when you introduce any topic, is what do they already know about it? What is their background knowledge? Because every kid that you teach, regardless of your subject or topic or any of that stuff, will come to your class and come to that topic knowing stuff, right? I mean, all I got to do is point up to the sky and say, list all the things you know about that. The sun, stars, moon, planets, right? There's things that kids know, right? And so here under anticipatory set, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say here, I'm just going to make myself a little bit of room, is I'm going to say students will create a mind map of the mind map indicating their background knowledge regarding climate change and greenhouse gases. Okay. Now, again, you are creating this lesson plan, yes, for yourself, but for the substitute teacher that's going to come in because the roads are bad, or because you're sick today, or because you have a PD event today, or because your own child is sick and you can't get childcare and now you have to stay home, right? So I want my sub to know exactly what I want. And here, okay, is a word that we're going to do some linking to. So I'm just going to, again, just put a little bullet point in front of that to just differentiate between the two things that I'm going to have. Because the other thing I'm going to have here is also I'm going to have a video, okay? And I don't know what video yet because I'm going to need to go to YouTube and find it, okay? But so on this, students will create a mind map. Now, of course, you're going to need to do this yourself as the teacher. So what you're going to do is a skill that I think I've already taught you, but we're going to do this again. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to our drives and we're going to go new, and I'm going to choose Google Drawing. Okay. So my students can do this on paper, but I'm going to do it as a Google Drawing so that I don't have to take pictures of or scan my images in. So in here, I'm just going to call this climate change mind map. Okay, something like that. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert a diagram, and I'm going to cheat a little bit on this, and I'm going to go, let's see, view all. Is there a mind map one in here? No. Well, that sucks. That's too bad. Okay, so that means that I got to draw it by hand, but I'm just going to do this really fast. So just so you get the general idea, right? So I'm going to have a beginning circle here. Inside that circle, it's going to say, climate change. And then I'm only going to do a couple of these. I'm just going to do, I'm going to reproduce that circle here. I'll just do 3. Okay. So, and then from there, I'm going to, how am I going to do this again? How do you do that? Oh yeah, right. We need to insert a line. I'm doing this really fast on the fly here, but I'm going to link each one of my things to the center circle. Ooh, that's interesting. Let's try that. Let's do that a different way. Can we do it? There we go. And I'll link this one there. Same idea. So again, they're going to create a mind map with as many things as they know about climate change and greenhouse gases. Okay, so that's going to give me some background information or knowledge or an idea of where they're coming from. And again, if they know lots and lots about this, then I'm going to spend less time in class teaching this when there's going to definitely be things that they don't know that I got to teach them, right? So if I come back to my lesson plan, then all I really need to do, right, is link that to that mind map that I just created. So then there's that mind map that I just created. Okay. So that's going to give me an idea of their background knowledge. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I literally am going to go to YouTube and I am going to type in climate change and greenhouse gases. Okay. And we can take a look at this. Now, one of the other things that for me, because these are children, I want to look for a video that is more kid-based. Okay. Now, the other thing that you may or may not be aware of is that I am on YouTube. Okay. But YouTube, like the general YouTube, there is a YouTube for kids. So if you can't find the video that you want on regular YouTube, you could always go to YouTube for kids and find a video. And so those of you, Gracie, Emmeline, that are teaching kindergarten, grade 1, grade 2-ish kind of idea, definitely a great place to go, YouTube for kids. The other really, really nice thing about YouTube for kids is that all those videos are safe for kids. Okay. And so that you can almost be guaranteed, I'm going to go 99.9% that there is no inappropriate material in there. Okay. Which then leads me to one of my other things that we need to talk about here for 1 sec. I just got to move that up. Okay. But first, before we do that talking, I'm just going to click on this video. Now, edit here. Um, listen to and all that jazz. But okay, so here. There's a couple rules that we need to follow when we use videos in class. And when I say a couple, I mean literally a couple. Okay. Rule number one, and these are not guidelines, these are rules. One is that you need to watch the entire video, right? And what I'm talking about here is from start to finish, okay? Because if you don't do that and there's something inappropriate pops up, you're going to have to answer the questions of why you showed that video, okay? So it is paramount that you preview the video from the beginning to the very end to make sure there's no inappropriate pop-up ads and things like that, okay? And then the second rule about videos is if you're going to show a video, you are going to show, that's minutes, okay? 10 minutes maximum, right? And I can tell you what, we have all sat through where the teachers put a video on and press play and walked out of the room and you're supposed to watch the next 40 minutes of video, right? And that kind of idea. So no, okay? So if you have a 40-minute video, that's great. But you need to chunk it then into 10-minute segments, okay? And then I'm going to add one more rule, is that there is no passive video watching, okay? You are not running a Cineplex in your classroom. So they are not sitting up, kicking their feet up, grabbing some popcorn and a tasty beverage and watching a video that you're showing. I mean, the video you're showing is educational. It is to help achieve an outcome. And of course, everything that you do in a lesson in your classroom better map back to some outcome. Okay. So if an admin walked in and said, why are you watching that video? You're going to say, because it helped me meet my outcomes, right? And if you can't say that, then you should not be showing that video. Now, we can break this rule just a little bit, okay? Generally, right? So we can't break rule number one at all, ever, okay? Number two, we could break, and number three, we could break a little bit in this respect. Every video you show in your class doesn't have to be curriculum related, okay? I mean, there is no reason that you can't go to YouTube and for your anticipatory set, you show them some funny, stupid TikTok or, something, because again, remember, need, novelty, meaning, emotion. If you can get them laughing or whatever, those things, then you've got them hooked. Now I can show them the other video if I want, right? Or do something else. So where possible and where applicable, try to find a video that it really does kind of meet the outcome, but you can also just find them some crazy cat video on, TikTok or YouTube and show them that, right? To get them laughing and engaged. And now that you've got them there, now you can get into the actual lesson or whatever, okay? So on our lesson plan, I've got this video. Now, I just want to go back here and this video is called What is Greenhouse Gas or the Effect. And I'm going to just paste that in there instead, because now I actually have a title. And now on the link for the video, you can do this in one of two ways. I just go share and I grab the link. Of course, you can grab it from up here as well. And now remember, there's two things you can do. One is you can paste it in like that, which I don't typically like. So I would highlight that word. And of course, then I would choose the little link tool on my toolbar, or go insert a link. Or my favorite way to do that is to highlight it, and I just go Command K, and then it brings up that window. I go Command V to paste my link in, and then you can click apply. Okay, and then it makes that video. The other part that I'd like you to have for your video, because again, remember, time is important. How much time do I have? okay, is that this video is 2 minutes and 29 seconds long. So I like to go 2 minutes, 29 seconds so that I know how long this is going to take. Okay. Now, even though the video is 2 minutes and 29 seconds, you're going to need more time than that, right? Because again, here they are going to watch this video, and then what I would like to do is students will write, or actually here, I'm going to say record 3 interesting facts about the video. Okay. Now, the other way you can do this is this. So let me just make sure I've got this link again. I'm just going to copy it. Okay. Is in Google Classroom as the teacher. Now, as a student, you can't do this, but of course, as a teacher, I can. So I'm just going to go up here and go create material. Okay, when we get to the Google Classroom as the teacher assignment, you could do part of this. Okay, you have to have an education account to do this, which you will as a teacher in the classroom. But I'm just going to go add material. I'm just going to go call it video. Okay, and of course, if you want a description, I'll just go greenhouse gases. Okay, and then I can go down here and go YouTube. Okay, and I can paste that link in, hit enter. And, oh, it's not going to let me do it. Darn it. Okay. I don't know why, but because this is brand new as well. Oh, I see what they've done here. Oh, very interesting. Okay. You can add this video. Now, look, this comes with some comprehension questions and an answer key. So you could say, watch this video and answer these questions. Now, one of the button that's missing is that you can actually now add questions to a YouTube video, but I'm not sure why it didn't come up now, probably because I wanted it to. But I can add the video and you can have them answer questions however you want them to do it. And then you can post that into your Google Classroom, and they put on their headphones or whatever, or they watch it on their own device or whatever, and they can watch that video and be able to answer the questions. So here we are on that. So now here, remember I said sometimes I don't have this, or I add it, or I don't. So this time I'm not going to have it, because if I think about the activity, they're really, both of them are activities, right? So I don't really need to down here to list it as a chew activity. But what I do need to do is 2 more things. And you can see how much time this is already taking. We've just done the anticipatory set. But here, I already know that this is 2 minutes and 29 seconds. So I'm going to actually say just round it up to 3 minutes. And then in your mind, because again, we haven't actually done this one with students, is we need to give an amount of time for this mind mapping activity. So I don't know. I mean, I do know actually. How much time are you going to give them to write down their own mind map? 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 7 minutes? Okay, so let's call it 7 minutes. I'm going to give them 7 minutes to do that. Okay, then the other part of that is then me going, okay, what did you get? What did you get? What did you get? What did you get? Okay, until we get to a point where they've got a minimum of 10 things about climate change and greenhouse gases and all that stuff on their mind map. Okay, so this is probably going to take us 20 minutes. Okay, now, the other thing I'm going to tell you about time is this. If it is the first time you're teaching this and you're going, I think it'll take 10 minutes, or I'll use 10 minutes as an example because it's a nice round number. Okay. Probably, most likely, it's going to take you at least time and a half. So if you're saying it's going to be 10 minutes, it's probably going to take you 15. And even to be on the safe side, you might go, it's going to be twice as long as I think it's going to be. But on our mind maps, oh, this is the other thing I forgot to say, or on our lesson plans, your students, this is Brad's Utopia. And this is called, our school is called Utopia Elementary. And every student is at grade level. Nobody has exceptionalities other than they're all really smart and average type students. So you will be able to, in our utopian world, finish every lesson plan right on time. And students will know the things that they need to know, and you will never have a discipline problem, or you'll never have to stop and do something else. Everything just goes perfect. Okay, so we're going to create this lesson plan based on utopia, okay, which never happens. Okay, but in our world, for our lesson plans, it will. So if I say it's going to take 20 minutes to do that, it will take 20 minutes. And then down here, remember we said that we're going to give 3 minutes for this video. Okay, so I just do it that way. So now we have 23 minutes right here. I want to go back here for 1 second. This is a grade 6 science lesson. I have a maximum of 40 minutes, and I've already used more than half of it in my anticipatory set. Okay, and then of course, the other thing here that we need to take into consideration is the grade 6, 12 to 15 minutes and 3 to 5 items. Again, as a guideline. Now, have I stayed in this 15 minutes time limit in my anticipatory set? I have not, but in both of these activities, they're doing something. So they're actively learning. So they're not just sitting there watching me do something, right? Or they're not writing, copious amounts of notes. They are actually doing something. So now I know what's going on here. So I got 23 minutes. That means I only have 17 minutes left, which is not a lot of time. Okay. So a couple things that we could do. We could actually show this video down here in segment 1. It could be part of our chunk. Okay. Or we could come up with something else, which I don't have in my head yet. Okay. One other thing that we haven't completed here is what part of Bloom's taxonomy is this. And again, if we look at, we look at our completed, oh, actually, that's not what I want. I want Bloom's, and I want that, and I want the important, the important folder. And somebody tell me, are we going to be in the affective, cognitive, or psychomotor domain based on what we're doing here? Emmeline says cognitive. I'm going to go with that too, because that's where I think we're at. So if we open up the cognitive domain, and I make that bigger for you. There we go, something like that. Okay, and remember what they're doing here? They're creating a mind map of the things they know about greenhouse gases. So if we think about the cognitive domain, what level are they at? Are they at C1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6? Where do you think they're at? Based on the words that you can read here. Where are they at? Somebody needs to tell me this. 5, they're evaluating. Okay. Anyone else? Anyone out there want to go lower? Oh, well, I really love all of your optimism with those high numbers, but I think that we are going to be, like Kayla said, somewhere in the C1 to C2 range. Okay. Because if you think about it, they're going to be listing, recalling, retelling, stating, right? Again, here, telling, restating, those kinds of idea, that those words when they're creating this mind map. Okay. So I think that right here, we can just go C1. Or if you wanted, you could add both just to be safe, C2. I think that going to, in any ones that are higher than that, is probably being optimistic. I'm not going to say you're being wrong, but I'm going to say optimistic. Okay. Now, down, if I come here now and I go, okay, what is it? They're watching this video and writing down some interesting facts or answering some questions. What level of Bloom's taxonomy are they at now? Watch a video, write down some interesting facts, watch a video, answer 2 or 3 questions. If you're going to say C1 or C2 again, I think you're probably correct. So again, here, we can go C1, C2. Okay. And so that's our first anticipatory set section. Now, what I already know is that I've got 23 minutes here, leaving me with 17 minutes. That means that segment 2, adios, goodbye. delete table. Segment 3, same thing, right click, delete table. And that's going to leave me with a segment and a conclusion. Okay. Now, right now off the hop, I'm going to come in here and go that my conclusion is going to be 5 minutes. Okay. Because you got to remember what two things occur in the conclusion part of a lesson plan. One is you summarize or review the learning. And what's number 2? Does anybody remember number 2? I'll give you the start of the sentence. It brings the lesson to a what? Remember, this is a test question. Thank you, Jennifer. You're right. It brings the lesson to a definitive ending. So in your conclusion, I'm just going to hop down to that is, what are you going to do? Are you going to do an exit ticket? Are you going to do a Kahoot? Are you going to get them to write something down and show you? What are you going to do? So I'm going to go that it's going to be an exit ticket. Okay. And remember in Google Classroom, I gave you a link right up here to those exit tickets. Now, again, you can come up with your own, but it's a 3, 2, 1. Like if you use that exit ticket, it's 3 things I learned today, 2 ways I contributed to class, and 1 thing I want to know more about. So in my lesson plan, I'm going to go I'm just going to do this. I'm going to go 3, 2, 1, exit ticket. And if I wanted to, I could, I could link to, where the heck that ended up being, I could link to that exit ticket. I could just get them to write it down on a piece of scrap paper or on a sticky note or whatever you want. And I could link to that. And again, remember, we're planning for a sub. So linking it to those documents is important. And the other thing that's important, because it's not just you, under your sharing, you need to make sure that anybody that belongs to Red Deer Polytechnic, or again, pick your school district, can be a viewer. Okay. And that's going to be your sub. If you have a sub, he, she, they are going to have a Red Deer Catholic or Red Deer Public or whatever the case might be. They're going to have an email address that corresponds to that. So that means that you can limit it to Red Deer Polytechnic, or you could go anyone with the link. It's totally up to you, right? But they need to be a viewer, and so that they can access it. If you leave it as private, when they click on it, they're not going to be able to access it. So here's our 3, 2, 1 tickets. Again, you could print these out. You could have them write them on scrap paper, whatever you want to do that you think is the quickest. Okay. But that's kind of probably be. So I'm just going to write in here just because I don't know. I'm just going to put summary in there because we're going to talk about it maybe a little bit. Okay. And then the exit ticket is going to be this activity. So again, this is always optional. So because the 3, 2, 1 ticket is actually my activity, I'm just going to leave it like that. Okay. And again, I'm just going to say a verbal summary. Okay. If we think about this section, if we think about Bloom's taxonomy again, and we're getting them to tell us 3 things that they learned or whatever. Again, if we look at our chart, wherever the heck that ended up, there we go. Really, we are back to C1 and C2. We're not going to be any higher level on our lesson plan than that. And that's okay, because I'm treating this lesson plan as a day 1 lesson plan. So we're just starting this topic, that kind of stuff. Okay. So now I have got 28 minutes, which leaves me right now, I know if I'm going to do the math, I have 12 minutes to do that piece. Okay. And here it could be almost anything. So here's what I'm going to do here is what I'm going to do in this 12-minute segment is I'm going to give them some input words because I don't really have a lot of time. So here I'm just going to go, and we need to do this anyways, is that we are going to view and complete the definitions / vocabulary activity sheet. Actually, I'm going to call it a graphic organizer. Graphic organizer. Okay. And here, again, with this graphic organizer, and we don't have time right now in class to do this, but I would need to link to a graphic organizer about greenhouse gases or create my own. Either you link to either one that you can find on the web or one that you've made of your own, but you would need to link to this. Okay. And again, as we are looking at this and thinking about it, the question that should be in my mind is, what level of Bloom's taxonomy is that? And again, we're going to be sticking in and around the C1 to C2 range. Okay. And so to do that, and again, I need to put a link in here, but we're running out of time, so that's not going to work. So right now, if I add this all up, I've got 20, 23, 33, 35, and 5 equals 40. So I have my time. So here again, view and complete the graphic organizer. That really is your chew part of it, but I can just leave it like this. If I want, I can take that out of here again and do that. Okay. There, make it happy. Okay. Now we got to think about this. Let's go back up here. So I know that I've asked some questions, but then what are the things on this lesson plan that are actually things that we could use as assessment tools? I can think of actually 3 things. Does anybody want to throw some ideas out there? Okay, so the interesting facts. So the 3 interesting fact, I don't know, sheet or something like that. Okay, what else? There's 2 more things. What else am I getting them to do here? They're doing that. What about the mind map? Is the mind map, and Gracie, you're right, the exit card is 1, and the mind map. So I can go the mind map. I can go the exit ticket. And do we have anything else? And really, the graphic organizer as well, right? The graphic organizer. So all of those are assessment tools that I would use in this lesson. Okay, so those are all awesome. And now we have to figure this piece out. Okay, is what are my learning strategies? Well, if we look here, one of my learning strategies could be something like this, is that, and remember, they all really start this way. Students will be able to, oops, I spelled able wrong. Doesn't matter for now. Students will be able to accurately create a mind map. Will be, I'm going to say independently, and accurately create a mind map. Okay, that is one of my outcomes. That is, they need to do that. They need to be able to draw a mind map that is coherent and makes sense, and that I can read, and they can use it later on for studying purposes and all that. Okay, the other learning activity here is that, again, I'm just going to copy the students will be able to. Okay, students will be able to, again, activity, able to watch a video and record, I'm going to say accurate notes. Okay, so that's another one that we're doing here. And then here is my third one, again, based on the activities that I'm getting them to do, is that students will complete this graphic organizer, right? So again, I don't have a link to it yet, but I'm just going to highlight that yellow just to remind me that I need to create a link. But one of my other things is that students will be able to complete work assigned independently or something like that. Or if you want, you can as a member of a group. Okay, so that's another one of my one of my objectives or one of my learning strategies. And then the last one here is my 3-2-1 ticket, and I've already got 3, and on the rubric it says you just need 3, so we could leave it at 3, or we could add an objective around that last one. But just for time's sake, we're going to leave it at that and just say, for now, That's good enough. Okay, so now look at, we're getting there, right? We still have a bit of work to do on this. This is nowhere near complete, although we're getting there. Okay, so this top section is, as far as I'm concerned right now, good to go. Okay, only thing is that, again, just fancy this up a tiny bit. There we go. Make that a little bit bigger. Okay, this is looking pretty good. I like to keep things nice and sort of tight because it just helps save space. So I'm just decreasing the space on some of these spaces in between my different things that I've written. So we've got all of this down, and now we need to think about next time. So when we do science again, whether the kids are coming to you next time, or we're just going to we're going to switch. Okay, boys and girls, put your math books away. Let's get ready for science. What are we going to do next time? So again, this would be based on what am I actually going to do next time? So are we going to do some coloring? Are we going to do some cutting, gluing? What are we doing? So next time I'll just say students, or I'll just say here, remind students to bring their pencil crayons and notebooks, something like that. Okay, and so we've got that. Displays and materials. In this lesson plan, there really isn't a ton of stuff that I need, but I do need the link to this mind map. I need this video as a displays and or material as well. Although I have it linked here, you might want to add the link down here as well. In here, if you are writing on the whiteboard, which you're going to be doing, you will need whiteboard markers. Of course, what else will you need here? You'll need your 321 exit ticket or some paper or something like that to give them to fill out the 321 exit ticket. So all of those things could be listed here under displays and materials. Okay, teaching notes, because this literally is the first time that we're teaching it and we haven't taught it yet. On your lesson plans that you're going to be handing in to me, you don't need to fill in anything down here because you haven't done it yet. And remember, the point on teaching notes is to, next time, just reminders. Next time, have students do this. Next time, don't do this. Next time, do more of this, or whatever the case might be. And then basically, you are pretty close then to having a completed lesson plan. Okay. Now, with that said, thoughts and questions. Everybody's good? Okay, well, here's one thing that I can tell you that I know for sure is that as you start to develop these, you are going to have questions. Now, the other thing that I want to mention just before we run out of time here is this, is that there's going to be more words up here that I haven't added yet, okay? But for the purposes of this assignment, we've created this lesson plan, but what I want you to do actually before you do this process that I've done is I want you to go to one of the new AI sites that are out there. This is just ChatGPT. And I want you to ask them to create a lesson plan for you. Okay, so create a grade 6 lesson plan on climate change and greenhouse gases. I have no idea what it's going to come up with. I'm literally doing this for the first time. A grade 6 lesson plan on climate change and greenhouse gases. Now, you might be able to say based on the Alberta science curriculum, and again, the more you can type in this box, the better results you're going to get. So like on YouTube, right? If you type in dogs, you're going to get a million things. If you type in German Shepherds, you're going to get a narrower and more effective search, right? So, and include activities for the students. Okay. Now, I could say create a lesson plan based on, I'm going to do that, based on Madeline Hunter's methodology, G. And okay, so I think I've got enough parameters there. So I'm going to hit go. And it's very gracious, and it's here, it's going, it's creating, look at all the goodies it's creating here. So look at that. So look at direct instruction, modeling, guided practice, independent practice, closure, assessment. So based on that, on these prompts that I gave it, it came up with some good stuff. But let's have a look at it. Again, based on all the things we know, does it have what we need? Students will understand the concept of climate change, identify greenhouse gases, explore the impact. Okay, so this objective doesn't really work with what we've got here. So you're going to have to dig those up. It wasn't quite smart enough to find the Alberta curriculum and give us what we needed. Okay, materials. Well, you know what? Not bad. And a couple other things that we've mentioned already is good, right? The introduction. They want to begin with a KWL chart. We chose a mind map. It chose a KWL chart. Cool, I like that. Show a short video. We did that, right? Engage students in a brief discussion, okay? And they're saying this is going to take 10 minutes, probably more, but that's okay. Now, direct instruction. These are our segments, right? Explain, discuss, right? That. Now, the thing, so you can see here that they've given us some important words that we didn't have in our input, so we could add those. Related discussion to the Alberta Science. So here, again, it's saying highlight the specific outcomes. So it didn't give us the outcomes, but one of the things that you can share with your students is here's where, by the end of the time that we finish talking about this, this is what you should know. So you could share that with your students. Typically, I don't, but you could, right? Then you're going to model. Use visuals to illustrate greenhouse gas effect. So that is some kind of a diagram. We may or may not have time for that, but hey, this is a great idea. I might be able to do that next time as well, right? Show examples of human activities that release greenhouse gases. Well, it doesn't tell us what kind of examples. Are we showing pictures? Are we showing some videos? What are we doing? So you still need to do a little bit of work and dig up there. What are they going to do for guided practice? And we have to look at time. So that's 25, 45, 55, 65, 70, 80 minutes. So it's being we asked it to give us all these different steps, and that's cool, but you're not going to have time for all of this stuff. So you can see, hopefully you can see how this is a good starting point. And then you can take what they've got here and relate it back to your lesson plan. Now, if you use ChatGPT and their ideas, what I would require you to do, and you can do that right down under here, under displays or materials or teaching notes, you need to give credit to ChatGPT, okay? If you do not know how to cite ChatGPT, back in Google Classroom, way at the very bottom, under course admin and its APA format, I have given you a thing here on how to cite AI resources. Okay, so pretty much you've got a lesson plan on the go. Okay, now what we all, I know a little bit over time here, folks, and I realize that, but this is super duper important. So what we're going to do here is completed brain lesson plan. I think we're going to need more time, so I'm going to give this a 2-week deadline. So, it's due on Valentine's Day. Okay, I'm going to save that. So that's going to give you time to dig up your AI version. It's going to give you time to think about where you're going to find your outcome, whether it's in the old curriculum, new curriculum, etc. Okay, and then it's going to give you time to develop questions that I can either answer. If you want to send me an email or a remind message if you get stuck, I can help you that way. Or we can talk about some of these things next class as well, which is a week away. So if you do have pressing questions and you can't move forward until Brad helps you, then please don't hesitate to send me an email or a remind message, and I can help you. Okay. Now, with that all said, if you don't have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can head on out. If you have things that you'd like to talk to me about or questions on your mind, stick around. And in the meantime, I will just stop the recording. And hey, everybody, thanks for class. We covered a lot of stuff, but it's all important stuff. So thank you, everyone.